A popular student holds court, bragging about a recent offer. His friends eat it up, certain he'll be the best. And Itto, humble as ever, is happy to agree. But the student in the back is completely tuned out. For Jinya Kochu, all this talk of magic swords is just background noise. As night falls, he makes his way home alone, but his quiet walk home is abruptly interrupted by a strange, sudden force. A swirling vortex of energy erupts from the ground, dragging an unsuspecting victim into a terrifying new reality. Jinya's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. An overwhelming power yanks him off his feet. The world dissolves into a spinning vortex of energy, leaving his ordinary life behind on the pavement. He's not the only one, as a terrified girl is also swallowed by the light. Jinya comes to, his head pounding from the violent transition. He finds himself standing in a strange, stone-walled corridor, and a horrifying realization dawns on him. This is a detached labyrinth, a new type of disaster that has plagued the world for some time, a personal dungeon that traps a single person at its very center. He recalls the official advice for anyone trapped in a labyrinth, but on a deserted street, no one even knows he's gone. And of course, his phone has no signal. The girl from before is here too, panicking over the grim survival rates. A dark, foreboding corridor stretches out before them, and a chilling sound echoes from the darkness. He knows those aren't the footsteps of a rescue team. With no other choice, he decides to run for it. He refuses to die here, not while his sister is waiting for him. He understands now there's only one way out of this place. He and the girl cautiously peek around the corner. He tries to calm his racing heart, telling himself to focus. He steels his resolve, determined to find what they need. He knows that to escape, they must find a specific item. An item that is nowhere to be found in this empty room. After searching 4 rooms, he starts to doubt the rumors he'd read online. He suddenly wishes he'd paid attention during those boring safety lectures. But a sudden presence snaps him back to reality. He's shoved forward with incredible force and looks up to see someone standing over him, someone who made no sound at all. He recognizes the creature instantly from its blade-like arms and dark halo. It's a monster that appears in these labyrinths, a 9th class, a creature known as a fallen angel. He recalls the terrifying data, superhuman and immune to normal weapons, but seeing it in person is a whole different level of terrifying. Even as the lowest rank, it's far beyond what a normal human can handle. So much for an easy first boss. The angel's blades flare with a blinding light, and Jinya is frozen in sheer terror. But his fear gives way to a desperate, manic grin. As he's sent flying by the monster's brutal attack, the blade slices into his side, a searing line of pain. He stumbles back from the sheer force of the blow, but the monster seems to have overextended its attack. The wound isn't deep, and Jinya sees his opening. He lets out a desperate, ear-splitting scream, a sound that momentarily confuses the fallen angel. It tilts its head, trying to understand this strange human tactic, a moment of hesitation that could cost it everything. Because Jinya isn't screaming in fear, he's screaming a war cry. He furiously accuses the monster of calling for backup. He scrambles away from the monster, spotting a dark corridor. With no other option, he bolts down the hallway. He pants, pushing through the pain in his side. His footsteps echo in the oppressive darkness. But at the end of the hall, a brilliant light appears. He cautiously peeks around the corner, his heart pounding. A wave of pure relief washes over his face. Looks like those online rumors weren't total garbage after all. He's found the only thing that can fight an angel, the ownerless magic blades known as the hollow swords. But his relief is cut short by a sudden dilemma. He has to choose between the right sword or the left, a choice he has no time to make. He realizes this is no time for hesitation. He takes a deep breath, steadying his nerves, and in a moment of clarity, he knows what to do. When in doubt, just grab both, problem solved. The moment he touches them, a powerful energy erupts, and a flood of memories and power surges through him. He screams as the sword's knowledge floods his mind. The hilts begin to fuse directly into his hands. They dissolve, becoming a part of his very being. A blinding flash of light erupts from his body. He slams his fist down, struggling to contain the raw power. His arms begin to change, taking on a strange, hardened texture. He sees a vision, a past warrior, kneeling in defeat before the angels. Snapping back to reality, he finds the fallen angel has caught up. Its blade scrapes across the floor, lunging for the kill. But Jinya just smirks, apparently enjoying this a little too much. The angel taunts him, asking what's wrong with the swords. It seems to believe the power is too much for him to handle. But as Jinya looks up, his entire mentality has changed. The fear in his eyes is replaced by an unnerving calm. The terror that once paralyzed him has vanished completely. He now stands before the monster as an equal. He even has the nerve to tell the angel to relax. Because those blades he absorbed, they aren't his true weapon. His real magic sword is something he creates himself, and with a single command he calls it forth. The fallen angel braces itself for the incoming attack. Jinya lunges forward, his new blade clashing with the angel's. The sword cuts through the air with incredible speed, shattering the very air around them. He unleashes the power of his sword, the Nameless Legion. But the angel manages to block the blow with a desperate defense. Jinya stares, confused by the outcome. He expected his blade to slice through the monster with ease. He realizes his form was sloppy, his technique unrefined. Guess you can't just download sword skills instantly. The angel, however, isn't about to give him a second chance. It pushes back with a furious counterattack. But Jinya holds his ground, his expression grim. He's shocked by the sheer force of the blow. He uses the momentum to slide past the monster, and with a desperate swing, he shatters its blade. He realizes he overshot his attack, just like the angel did before. Turns out raw power doesn't come with an instruction manual. He accepts that mistakes will happen on his first try. But these new arrivals will make for some excellent practice. He gestures for them to bring it on, promising to destroy them all. The angels are protected by a force field that repels all attacks, but his blade is the one weapon that can break through. The only thing that can pierce their defense is another magic sword. He brings the blade down with devastating force, a clean strike right through the monster's head. But the angel taunts him, calling his attack a mistake. Jinya clicks his tongue in frustration, because another angel intercepted the blow at the last second, sending him spinning from the force of the parry. Guest team-ups are allowed in the angel rulebook. He lands awkwardly, already critiquing his own sloppy form. He immediately launches another furious attack. The force of his swing creates powerful shockwaves. He realizes he has to add more force to break their guard. It's a technique that will definitely require some practice. But then he notices something strange. A glowing orb of light emerges from the defeated monster. And suddenly he's not alone anymore. It's Itto, the popular kid from school. He's gripping a glowing magic blade of his own. And from the look on his face, he's in way over his head. The light from the defeated angel flows into Itto's new sword. He realizes the blade grows stronger by absorbing their energy. Jinya, meanwhile, discovers his own power boost has healed his wound. He figures he can use Itto to find the labyrinth's core and escape. But then a different thought seems to cross his mind. He glances down at the remains of the first angel he defeated. He considers that the hollow sword it dropped might be valuable, but decides it's way too much of a hassle to carry around. With his plan set, he activates a new ability. Body enhancement. His strength and speed are now beyond human comprehension. He rockets forward, but the raw power is difficult to control. He realizes his body is now too light for his own strength. It's a frustrating feeling, like his body can't keep up with its own upgrades. Just then, an angel spots Itto, who looks less than thrilled to be noticed. Jinya watches, deciding it's better to take them out individually. But Itto, feeling his new sword's thirst for battle, leaps into the fray. He brings his blade crashing down on the nearest angel, but he's immediately overpowered, struggling to hold his ground. Jinya can only watch as the sloppy attack unfolds. The angel easily parries the blow, completely unimpressed. Jinya is suddenly swarmed, blocking attacks from all sides. A voice in his head tells him his attacks are useless, his movements easily read, and Itto isn't faring any better as another angel appears behind him. The clash of blades echoes through the corridor. The voice continues its critique. His swings are too wide, too reckless. He's told to focus, to let his body and sword become one. His eyes flare with a strange light as he's urged to predict his enemy's moves. The angel pauses, sensing a sudden shift in the air. The voice gives its final command. End this with a single decisive strike. And suddenly the world seems to slow down around him. The angel can only react with stunned surprise. In this heightened state, Jinya's focus is absolute. He can see it all now. Every single move his opponent is about to make. He knows exactly where and when to strike. And in a blur of motion, he closes the distance. He swings his blade in a perfect, deadly arc. His expression is cold, his purpose clear. The sword connects with impossible speed, and with one flawless strike, the angel is defeated. Guess that sword tutorial finally kicked in. The voice in his head offers some faint praise for the clean strike, but it only gives him a 70 out of 100, noting his form is still too stiff. With the immediate threats gone, a path forward finally opens up. At the end of the hall lies the heart of the labyrinth, guarded by a final squadron of fallen angels. As he approaches, the core itself seems to crackle with energy, but Jinya is already moving, taking down his 12th opponent. The 13th falls just as quickly, and the 14th is cleaved in two without a fight. Looks like someone's getting the hang of this. He stands over the wreckage, noting their defensive barriers are still a minor issue. He takes a moment to assess, figuring he's halfway done. The voice tells him to enhance all 5 of his senses, allowing him to pinpoint the 8 remaining angels. 7 of them are clustered together, guarding the Labyrinth's core stone. He weighs his options, knowing a 1-on-7 fight is a terrible idea. The voice explains the Labyrinth's mechanics. It needs both the core and a sword to exist. So the angels are defending their lifeline, which is also his only way out. He briefly considers waiting for rescue, but that's a terrible long-term plan. He sighs, accepting that there's no avoiding this fight. This is the final showdown, and he's ready to end it. Jinya confirms his count. 7 angels, just as he predicted. But he notices something different about the 2 in the back. Before he can finish his thought, a projectile whips past his head. He barely has time to register the sudden attack. He throws up his sword just in time to block another shot. He realizes the angels are armed with crossbows. So much for a fair fight. The bolts hit with the force of a rifle, and he knows he can't block them forever. With ranged support, the angels have him completely pinned down. He knows he has to act now before they can reload. It's time to unleash a magic sword technique, amplifying his power. It's a technique he'd hoped to avoid, one that drains him far more than simple enhancement. A first-stage ability of the Nameless Legion, a blast of pure energy. He unleashes a devastating flying slash that rips through the front line, shattering their forms. But the backlash hits him hard, the sheer cost of the attack taking its toll. The power is immense, but it's draining his stamina faster than he ever expected. The voice in his head urges him on, reminding him the ranged threats are still standing. With a furious roar, he prepares to fire again with everything he has left. He swings his blade, unleashing another wave of destructive energy. And this time, not a single angel is left standing in its path. The last of the angels dissolve into nothingness. But the victory comes at a steep price as Jinya stumbles. He falls to one knee, the backlash nearly overwhelming him. He admits that firing off attacks like that is not a sustainable strategy. Still, he forces himself to his feet, his sword still humming with power. He realizes that without the constant energy boosts from his kills, he'd be done for. He approaches the Labyrinth's core, deciding this high-stakes lifestyle isn't for him. With the final obstacle cleared, all that's left is to destroy the core stone. But a strange message appears in the air before him, and in that same instant, the core stone shatters on its own. Jinya can only stare as reality itself begins to fracture, and something on the other side stares back, noting he's taken too long. The very fabric of the labyrinth is shattering before his eyes. He realizes now why waiting for rescue was never an option. The longer a labyrinth exists, the more powerful the angels it summons. This is the hidden factor behind the labyrinth's grim survival statistics. He curses his luck. Just as he got the power to win, the timer ran out. So much for a clean escape. The core stone was right in front of him, but the surrounding darkness is now too strong. And from the rift, a new, far more grotesque horror emerges. It collapses to the floor in a disgusting, dissolving heap. The creature lets out a low, guttural roar. It towers over him, a grotesque mockery of a living being. He recognizes this new threat instantly. An Archangel, an 8th-class monster, a far cry from the grunts he just fought. He realizes that just one step up the ladder is a world of difference, and suddenly the fallen angels look like kittens in comparison. Guess the final boss just logged on. But the fear he once felt is completely gone, replaced by a pure, unadulterated will to fight. He knows the sword is messing with his head, but right now he's grateful for the clarity. As the Archangel unleashes another terrifying roar, he notes the creature's overwhelming pressure, but also its sluggish movements. Unlike a typical hero, he has no intention of waiting for the boss to power up. He aims a flying slash directly at the monster's core. The blast of energy slams into the Archangel's grotesque body, but the attack is stopped cold, unable to break through. Jinya grits his teeth, having expected this level of defense. He immediately unleashes another slash with all his might, and then another, refusing to let up for even a second. He decides to pour every last bit of his enhanced power into his attacks, and the entire corridor is consumed by a blinding flash of light. When the light fades, the only thing left is the sound of dripping. Jinya gasps for air, his body screaming in protest. He doubles over, the strain of his own power tearing him apart from the inside. The taste of blood fills his mouth, a grim reminder of his limits. He's completely exhausted, with nothing left in the tank. And yet the Archangel is still standing, completely unfazed. He can only manage a bitter smile, realizing he's out of options. The thought of his sister flashes through his mind, of leaving her all alone. but he refuses to give up, pushing himself to his feet. As long as his heart is still beating, he will fight to the very end. The Archangel seems surprised by his defiance. It winds up, preparing to unleash a devastating blow. Its fist rockets forward with incredible speed. But the attack is intercepted by a mysterious new arrival. A single hand holds back the monster's overwhelming power. Jinya realizes this creature's power is on a whole other level. But then he notices something strange about its left hand. It seems to be sheathing its own energy, as if it needs protection. He deduces the monster can't fully control its own immense power. He decides to gamble, since the game was rigged from the start anyway. He decides to leave the consequences to his future self. But his body is failing, unable to channel any more energy into his blade. And in that moment of despair, something flickers at the edge of his vision. It's the hollow sword left behind by the very first angel he defeated. But his discovery is interrupted by a new arrival, drawn by the sounds of battle. The final angel of the squadron has decided to clock in for its shift. With a desperate roar, Jinya demands more power from his sword. He swings with the last of his strength in a wild, frenzied attack, commanding his nameless legion to devour the nearby sword's energy. The hollow sword's power surges into his own blade. He pushes past his limits, ready for one final, all-out assault. A single ray of hope cuts through the darkness. He knows he has to seize this one chance at victory. He was waiting for this exact moment. The instant the Archangel opened its hand to attack, he unleashes another flying slash with everything he has. The girl from before can only watch in shock. A silver light pierces through the monster's energy and strikes the Archangel directly in its core. The blast connects with devastating force, tearing through the Archangel's grotesque form. The monster can only watch as its body is obliterated. It's completely annihilated from the inside out. Even the last remaining angel is caught in the blast. The explosion is so powerful it shatters the very walls of the labyrinth. The entire dimension begins to crumble and fall apart. So much for a quiet exit. Jinya is thrown back by the sheer force of the backlash, sent tumbling through the collapsing space. He lands hard, gasping for breath, wondering if it's finally over. The raw energy of his victory washes over him. He realizes he's absorbing the power of the Archangel and the Core Stone. The girl can only stare, completely stunned by the display. But it's not Jinya who's taking the brunt of the power. It's the mysterious voice from his head, now taking physical form. When the light fades, Jinya finds himself in a strange, ethereal field. He has no idea how he got here. He turns to the figure standing behind him, demanding to know who she is. She teases him, noting he was much more talkative a moment ago. And he finally gets a look at the person who's been his combat coach. A woman with long white hair and dark horns stands before him. A faint, knowing smile plays on her lips. She explains that his high sync rate with the sword is what brought him here. But she tells him he's still far too weak to learn her true name. Jinya can only stare, trying to process her words. He finally understands. She's the demon living inside his sword. She tells him to forget this encounter for now, until the day they meet again. He reaches for her, but the ethereal world begins to fade away. And just like that, he's back on the cold pavement where it all began. He realizes it wasn't a dream, as the hollow swords lie beside him. Jinya sits up, aching all over, confirming that waiting for rescue was a terrible plan. But then he spots a small black orb on the pavement. He picks it up, recognizing it as the Archangel's Core Stone. He knows he should report this to the Magic Sword Association, but he's seen enough to know how dangerous those people can be. He decides to hold off on making any official calls for now. Besides, he has a much more pressing problem to deal with. He walks home, already dreading how he'll explain his ruined clothes. Under the light of the full moon, the city is deceptively quiet, but someone is watching as a cloaked figure soars across the rooftops. The cloaked figure lands silently on a nearby rooftop. She reports into her comms, confirming she's at the location, but it seems she's too late. The labyrinth's entrance is already gone. She receives new orders. Retrieve the sword left behind. With a single command, she summons her own blade, the powerful magic sword known as Shutenduji. She knows that when a labyrinth closes, it leaves behind a faint trace, a stigma that her blade can use to reopen the gate. Guess you need a keycard for these things. But when she arrives at the scene, something is wrong. She reports back with a grimace. The stigma has vanished completely. She realizes the stigma vanished far too quickly, wondering if someone else got here first. The next day, Jinya is out on a part-time job, walking 3 very energetic dogs. It's a simple gig, a 1-hour run for a client with a bad back. But what used to be a workout is now effortless. He's keeping pace with the dogs at 50 km/h without even trying. He knows this newfound energy is a gift from the Archangel's core stone. With a body that can fight monsters, the concerns of his classmates now seem trivial. He feels his personality shifting, becoming colder, but finds the change strangely comforting. He decides it's time to test just how much his body enhancement has improved. With a simple squeeze, he unleashes a fraction of his terrifying new power. He puts his new body to the test, bursting into a full sprint. But his leg strength is so immense his feet barely touch the ground. He realizes his body is now too light for his own power. Just trying to run at full speed is a battle in itself. He slides to a stop, realizing he's about to be late for school. After returning the dogs to their grateful owner, Jinya heads back to his own home. He calls out that he's back, finding his sister at her computer. She turns, asking about his part-time job. This is Readoki, his employer. He explains the client still needs his help and that he's never even met the real boss. Rio explains that she hired him a year ago out of a strange mix of pity and convenience. She gives him his next assignment, mowing a lawn across town. She then tosses him a small package for a delivery on his way. Jinya reminds her that motorcycles are banned at his school, but she couldn't care less. But then, a sudden thought stops him in his tracks. He turns back, explaining he's here as a client, not an employee. Rio seems amused, asking what he wants and offering him a generous employee discount. But Jinya isn't here to buy anything. He's here to sell. He reveals the Archangel's core stone, figuring she'd know what to do with it. Her expression shifts from curiosity to alarm as she asks where he found it. Her eyes glow with a strange light as she tells him to stay out of this. And in a flash, she summons a massive blade of her own, much to Jinya's shock. She notes how lucky he was to survive, realizing the Labyrinth must have been nearby. She then playfully congratulates him for passing her interview. Guess this was all just a test, but Jinya interrupts, showing her the strange marks on his chest. He places the orb on the table, explaining this is the real problem. Rio's expression hardens as she identifies it as a celestial stone. She ponders its unusual color, a deep look of concern on her face. She tells Jinya she'll need to keep it for appraisal, and he agrees. But she has one final question. Does he plan to get involved with the Magic Sword Association? Jinya explains he has no desire to join, knowing he'd just be used as cannon fodder. Rio agrees, calling it a wise and obvious decision. She warns him the association is full of fanatics, and that once bonded, a magic sword can't be removed. She tells him to get strong enough to protect himself, or he'll be eliminated. He asks for her help until he graduates, and she agrees to prepare him. He now has 6 months to get ready for whatever comes next. He decides to leave the tough choices to his future self, a truly foolproof strategy. Rio had offered to buy any hollow swords he could find, but he knows they're incredibly rare. Back in class, Itto is once again holding court with his friends. He's bragging about being scouted by the Magic Sword Association. Jinya considers the Magic Sword Association an organization built around hollow swords. He sees it as a group of fanatics, bound to their blades for life. To survive in their world, you need natural talent, like Itto's skill in kendo. But back in the classroom, Itto is just another loudmouth. As a friend throws an eraser at him, Jinya's hand moves in a blur, snatching it from the air. The entire group stares, stunned into silence by the impossible catch. Itto can only wonder if it was just a coincidence. Jinya gets up, ignoring the questions from his classmates. He just needs to find a place where he can be alone. He spots the school rooftop, the perfect place to be alone. He knows it's locked, which means no interruptions. With a burst of enhanced power, he leaps up the side of the building. He lands silently on the roof, skipping the stairs entirely. He pulls out his phone, deciding to start with some basic kendo forms. In a flash of light, he summons the Nameless Legion, but he knows his body enhancement has its limits. He recalls the basic strikes of kendo, all precise and controlled. But he quickly realizes that a sport designed for humans won't do him much good against actual monsters. He tries boxing and karate, but the results are disappointing. He realizes he needs to change his entire approach to training. If no existing style works, he'll just have to invent his own. A fighting technique built specifically for magic sword combat. The first step isn't technique, but mastering his body enhancement. He'll create a series of forms to control his power output. It might sound rigid, but these set movements are the key. And for Jinya, this new method is the perfect solution. A solution that seems almost too simple to be true. By repeating these forms, he finally begins to tame his overwhelming strength. A week passes in a blur of intense training. He learns to deflect attacks with his bare hands, and parry with his blade, his focus absolute. He can now shatter projectiles with a single punch. With the basics mastered, he feels a surge of confidence. It's time to add his magic sword techniques to the mix. But he realizes the school rooftop is no longer safe for this. Probably a good call before he vaporizes the principal's office. So he leaps from the building in search of a new spot, landing with enough force to crack the pavement. His training has only just begun, but as he trains, a familiar chilling sensation stops him cold. He recognizes it instantly. A detached labyrinth has opened nearby. His enhanced senses give him a clear vision of the scene unfolding. He feels the same tingling energy from his own ordeal, a power that now allows him to sense these rifts in reality. He quickly pinpoints the source of the disturbance and lands in front of an ordinary suburban home. The demon in his sword confirms the house is empty despite the lights. Guess monsters don't bother with alarm systems. He rings the doorbell but gets no answer. He tries the handle and finds the door is unlocked. He cautiously lets himself in, announcing his intrusion. The house is eerily silent as he walks down the hall. He finds signs of life, but the residents are nowhere to be seen. And then he finds the source of the disturbance. The shimmering portal to a detached labyrinth right in the living room. He weighs his options, but calling the authorities is tough to explain, especially the whole breaking and entering part. But then a faint sound from the portal catches his attention. A child's voice calling out for their mother. The desperate cry echoes from the otherworldly gateway, and Jinya's blood runs cold as he realizes a kid is trapped inside. He knows he doesn't have time to second-guess himself. With a surge of resolve, he throws caution to the wind and plunges headfirst into the otherworldly portal. The familiar, disorienting transition washes over him. He's back in a stone labyrinth, just 1 week after his last visit. So much for a relaxing break. The voice in his head gives him his orders. Find the family and do it quietly. His enhanced senses immediately pick up on a nearby threat. He reacts instantly, intercepting an ambushing angel. The force of his punch ripples through the monster's form. His training pays off as he neutralizes the threat with brutal efficiency. He crushes the monster's head with his bare hand and moves on before its body even hits the floor. He notes their attack patterns are still annoyingly predictable, but knows that one moment of carelessness is all it takes to die here. He realizes he needs to speed things up. His senses map the area. 16 angels and a family of 2, still alive. Meanwhile, another person is having a much rougher day at the office. He prepares to unleash an unfinished experimental technique, firing a concentrated blast of energy at his top speed. He rockets forward in a posture designed for pure acceleration. He's based it on an old martial arts concept, using gravity and reflexes to achieve maximum speed. His body is now a living projectile. Just as he predicted, 2 angels guard the next room. He decides there's no time to fight them one by one. He'll take them both out in a single high-speed pass. Guess he's a fan of pinball. With a grimace, he prepares to execute the move. He ricochets off the wall, a blur of pure energy. The first angel doesn't even have time to react, as Jinya is already past it, moving on to the next target. He unleashes his 7th form, a devastating left sweep. The second angel shatters before he even completes the motion. The next monster in line can only stare in stunned disbelief. As Jinya closes the distance in a blur of motion, he switches to his 4th form, a right upward slash, and then his 6th, a left upward slash. The combination cleaves the next angel in 2. He's created his own combat style, a system of forms for movement and attack. He admits the technique is still rough, but it's getting the job done. He flies down the corridor, knowing the family is just past the next 4 angels. But this time, the angels have brought some new toys. Jinya realizes he's up against a crossbow wielder. He knows he can't let it take aim, so he closes the distance. But the angel is quick on the trigger, firing a bolt of pure energy. The projectile screams through the air towards him. He deflects it just in time, the blast grazing his face, and continues his assault, unleashing his 3rd form without hesitation. And finally he finds them. A mother and child, cornered and terrified. She looks up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. Jinya offers a wild grin, happy to have made it in time. The mother shields her son, bracing for the angel's final blow. But her terror is met with a flash of pure, unadulterated rage. Jinya slams into the ground, stopping the attack in its tracks. He grips his sword, his voice a low, menacing growl. The boy can only cry out as the monster looms over his mother. And that's the last mistake this angel will ever make. Jinya unleashes another flying slash, a wave of pure destructive force. The attack rips through the remaining angels, shattering them instantly. Guess they didn't get the memo about the new management. The boy can only watch, his tears mixing with awe. Jinya turns to them, his own power fading as he asks if they're hurt. The boy cries out for his mother, who lies motionless on the ground. Jinya leans in, warning him to stay quiet unless he wants more company. He assesses the wound, noting it's deep but thankfully not fatal. It seems she took the blow while shielding her child from harm. The boy looks up, asking if Jinya is some kind of magician. Jinya awkwardly plays along, promising his magic will fix everything. He instructs the boy to keep pressure on the wound while he's gone. He promises to clear a path for them to escape this nightmare. The boy nods, his fear replaced by a newfound resolve. With a confident smirk, Jinya prepares to finish the job. Guess being a hero doesn't come with paid time off. He knows that leaving them here will only attract stronger angels. The voice in his head agrees, urging him to clear a path without delay. He finds the core stone guarded by 7 angels. Looks like the welcoming committee is all here. He quickly maps out his route of attack and unleashes his new forms in a blur of motion. He weaves through their defenses with impossible speed. The angels can only watch, unable to track his movements. He pushes forward, following his planned route perfectly, but his body still struggles to keep up with the new techniques. He recovers instantly, shattering the next angel with a powerful upward slash. He realizes that even with his speed, the angels can't possibly track him. He sticks to his pre-planned forms, adapting his route on the fly. The voice in his head is pleased, noting his new techniques are well worth the effort. His blade hums, resonating with his growing power. Each kill fuels him, boosting his base stats with every defeated angel. He can feel the difference. He's far stronger than when he first entered. At this rate, a few more fallen angels are just a light warm-up. He considers his next move, knowing only the grunts are left. His senses show him 2 paths, one empty, the other leading to a wider space. He'd rather avoid a fight, but something about the empty path feels off. A tingling sensation runs down his spine. He knows something far worse than an angel waits down this hall, but he'd already prepared himself for the worst. He stops, sensing their presence just around the corner. He wonders if this is a trap or just a lazy ambush. But with lives on the line, he has no intention of losing. He gets a look at the new guards, a clear upgrade from the last model. These ones feel different, more intelligent than the usual grunts. But compared to the darkness he senses from the boss, this new winged horror is clearly the main event. Looks like the final exam is here. He realizes the monster he just defeated lacked a halo, the key sign of an angel. He curses the Magic Sword Association for keeping so many secrets, but pushes the thought aside. There's no time for observation. The best plan is a swift, decisive strike. And his first target is obviously the most annoying one in the room. The winged angel brings its massive blade down with blinding speed. But Jinya meets the blow head-on, using his 5th form to parry. He follows up with a brutal punch, striking the angel's core. But the blow isn't deep enough. Its defenses are too strong for a single hit. He dodges a swift counterattack, his focus absolute, and brings his own sword down for a finishing blow. The angel's blade shatters from the force of the blow. Its form dissolves, a look of pure shock on its face. With a furious roar, Jinya launches himself forward. He rockets through the air like a human cannonball, and slams his fist directly into the next angel's core. He lands with enough force to crack the very ground beneath him. The second angel is obliterated in a flash of light. He smirks, noting that without wings, they're just sitting ducks. He immediately turns his attention to the next opponent, unleashing another devastating flying slash without hesitation. It's a more compressed version of his flying slash, packing the same power into a much smaller area. The blast is smaller but more than enough for a single target, and it tears through the remaining monsters with ease, leaving nothing but shattered armor in its wake. He realizes he can't break their guard, but their joints are a weak point. But these powerful attacks are taking a serious toll on his stamina. He turns his attention to the last remaining guard. The hulking monster raises its blade for a final desperate strike, and brings it down with a speed that catches Jinya off guard. He barely manages to block the blow, the impact rattling his bones. He grits his teeth as his body enhancement begins to fade. He has 5 seconds until his power returns, 5 seconds he can't afford to waste. The voice in his head chides him for his reckless use of power. He knows he has to stall, but the angel isn't about to wait for him. The monster lowers its stance, preparing for a high-speed charge, but Jinya sees through the tactic, recognizing it as a clever feint. The angel seems to hesitate, realizing this human is smarter than the others. It abandons the feint and lunges forward with everything it has. But it's too late. Jinya's 5 seconds are up. With his power restored, Jinya rockets forward to meet the final guard. He meets the monster's blade not with his sword, but with his fist, and shatters it with a single decisive blow. He admits that was a close call, but now it's time to destroy the core. But a sudden, sharp pain stops him in his tracks. A projectile smashes into an invisible barrier just inches from his face. He realizes he's not the one creating the shield. A new fighter has entered the ring, kicking an angel aside with ease. Guess the cavalry decided to show up after all. Jinya can only stare, wondering where this newcomer came from, and he recognizes him instantly. It's Itto, looking like he's had a very bad day. The winged angel can only stare as its arm shatters into pieces. Jinya scoffs, annoyed that it let its guard down so easily. The monster braces itself, waiting for the perfect moment to counterattack. But Jinya knows this labyrinth won't let him leave without a final boss fight. He decides to unleash a new technique, the Silver Flame. He plunges his sword into the ground, unleashing a torrent of energy. A massive pillar of light erupts, consuming everything around him. He notes the blast is just as massive as the last time he used it. The world is consumed by a blinding flash, and he finds himself back in that familiar, ethereal field. Guess this is the sword's official loading screen. He calls out into the void, knowing he's not alone, and is answered by a faint, knowing laugh. The demon from his sword appears, pleased with his progress. He mutters her title, the Demon of the Magic Sword. But she tells him he's still too weak to handle the power overflowing from his kills. He doesn't understand what she means by overflowing. He insists he has more than enough power and no desire to become a true swordsman. But she tells him he must grow stronger and absorb everything. All the anger, sorrow, and hatred of the fallen. But before he goes, she offers to teach him something new. She tells him he's still far too weak to even speak her name. And with that, the world snaps back to reality. The mother he saved is taken away by paramedics. A detective arrives on the scene to find the rescuer has already vanished. He's not happy to see the Magic Sword Association has taken over the case. He argues that with civilians involved, proper procedure must be followed. But the association's agent warns him to stay out of their way. The detective knows he's outmatched, admitting their weapons are useless against her kind. He reluctantly agrees to look the other way, leaving the association to handle the mess in their own mysterious way. Guess interdepartmental cooperation isn't a thing here. The agent knows it's best not to antagonize the local police. After all, every magic sword user is tagged and monitored by the association, so she wonders if an unregistered user could even exist. Back at home, Rio reports that her own search came up empty. A winged creature reports that a 7th-class stone was found at the scene. Rio knows a normal hollow sword couldn't handle an Archangel. Out on the street, the agent realizes this is a major problem. Meanwhile, Jinya spots a strange girl on his way home. With the authorities gone, he can finally make his move. He tells himself to stay out of trouble from now on. He takes a moment to process everything that just happened. He never expected to face another labyrinth within a week. He still doesn't know the name of the demon in his sword. The thought sends a jolt of pain through his body, a reminder that he's still struggling to contain her power. He realizes he's not yet strong enough to even speak her name. So he sets a new goal, become strong enough to earn that right. He decides to stop using his powers to jump across rooftops, probably for the best, considering his landing skills. But old habits die hard as he leaps from the building. With his enhanced body, a fall like this is nothing more than a short hop. Back at Rio's, a strange creature tells Jinya he's been pushing himself too hard. Rio, however, is thrilled with the results, having just sold the 3rd hollow sword he's brought her. Jinya looks exhausted, admitting it's been 20 days of non-stop labyrinth clearing. He's not doing it by choice, but he can't just stand by when people are in danger. Rio tries to cheer him up, noting the latest sword sold for an even higher price. But Jinya is focused on a more alarming trend. 3 labyrinths in 20 days is far from normal. Rio agrees the frequency is strange, but suggests it might not be a bad thing for him. After all, this real-world experience is leveling him up faster than any training ever could. She tells him not to worry about the cause, since no one understands how these things even work. Instead, she playfully tells him to stop overthinking and just enjoy the ride. Guess work-life balance isn't in her vocabulary. Rio tells him to be proud since he's out there saving lives. But Jinya knows their little side hustle is far from legal. Rio dismisses his concerns, explaining there are plenty of loopholes to exploit. Guess the law hasn't quite caught up with magic swords yet. She even packs him a lunch, a small bonus for all his dangerous work. The next day at school, everything feels painfully normal. Itto is once again the center of attention, bragging about his latest exploits. For Jinya, the classroom noise is just meaningless background chatter. His attention is fixed on the massive tower looming in the distance. A new orbital elevator, a project that will soon connect the Earth to space. And Jinya dreams of one day taking his sister to see the stars. He checks his phone, thinking about the money he's earned. All for the sake of giving his sister a trip to space. But his quiet moment is shattered by a sudden commotion. He stands up, his presence alone causing a stir. Itto turns, a look of pure panic on his face. He summons his own magic sword, screaming that a labyrinth is opening. Guess show and tell just got a lot more interesting. The other students can only stare at the glowing blade. He orders everyone to evacuate the classroom immediately. The students are confused, wondering who the labyrinth is targeting. But the energy seems to be swirling around Itto himself. Jinya calls out Itto's name in alarm, as a swirling vortex of energy erupts in the classroom. It shrinks down, leaving only a small orb of light behind. The students panic, realizing Itto has vanished completely. He and his friends find themselves in a familiar stone corridor. Itto looks around frantically, wondering where Jinya has gone. He curses his luck, trapped in this nightmare once again. But Jinya is somewhere else entirely, in a much larger labyrinth. He panics, wondering why the others are all clustered together, while he's been thrown so far away from the group. And just like that, the welcoming committee arrives. Jinya roars, calling himself a demon as he tells them to get back. He unleashes a furious attack, shattering the first wave of angels. He realizes 7 of his classmates are trapped here with him. He can only fight, hoping they all make it out of this alive. Elsewhere, the other students huddle in fear, wondering where Jinya went. Itto panics, confused why the other magic sword user isn't with them. But one of his friends offers a chilling theory. He suggests the labyrinth separated Jinya from them on purpose. The girl from the first labyrinth realizes this means the dungeon itself might be sentient. One of Itto's friends points out that no one even understands how these labyrinths work. The girls try to comfort each other, questioning what good the Magic Sword Association is in a crisis like this. But Itto tries to stay hopeful, believing that rescue is on its way. His friends aren't so sure, arguing that as long as the angels don't find them, they might be okay. But Itto refuses to just sit and wait for a rescue that might never come. He declares that he's going to find Jinya and regroup with him. His friends try to stop him, calling it a suicide mission. They remind him that his kendo skills mean nothing here without a weapon. Guess you can't parry a monster with good intentions. But before he can leave, a voice calls out, telling them to wait. The entire group freezes, their eyes wide with disbelief at what they see. A foot comes down, crushing the last angel's head. Jinya stands alone, realizing this labyrinth is impossibly vast. An overhead view confirms his fears. He's miles away from his classmates. The voice in his head warns him there's no time for wrong turns. But elsewhere, a familiar face intercepts a powerful blow. It's Itto, facing down an Archangel of his own. Guess he finally got his wish to be the hero. The monster stands guard, but Itto knows something is wrong. If this is just a guard, then the real boss must be even stronger. He realizes everything about this place is dangerously abnormal, and he questions if he can possibly get 7 classmates out of here alive. He steels his resolve, preparing for the worst. His senses map the labyrinth. 5 more rooms to reach his classmates. He rockets down the corridor, taking the most direct route. But the first room is already guarded by 3 archangels. But after clearing 3 labyrinths, he's on a whole new level. He roars that even an archangel is no match for him now. He blitzes past their defenses in a blur of motion, leaving them to shatter in his wake. He clears the next room, leaving only 2 more to go. And now only one final obstacle remains. But his enhanced senses pick up on a new terrifying presence. At the end of the hall, a new type of angel is charging its attack. The voice in his head tells him not to slow down, and to unleash his own attack before the angel can fire. Elsewhere, Itto prepares for his own desperate battle. Jinya unleashes his silver flame flying slash. Landing hard as the attack takes a toll on his body, he can feel his body enhancement starting to fade. But he knows he's just 1 room away from his classmates, and 3 more winged angels are standing in his way. Jinya can only stare in disbelief, a manic grin on his face. The lead angel crackles with power, preparing to unleash its attack. The voice in his head screams a warning, "Dodge with everything you have!" And the angels unleash a coordinated barrage of energy blasts. He realizes this labyrinth's difficulty is on a whole other level. He weaves through the attacks, coming from 3 directions at once. The onslaught is relentless, leaving him no room to breathe. The voice tells him to stop rushing and find the rhythm of their attacks. He begins to see the pattern in the chaos, and starts to move in sync with their deadly dance. He quickly analyzes their attack pattern. 6 shots, then a 3-second reload. And with 3 of them lined up, they're practically asking for it. He's also noticed one other critical flaw in their strategy. They're intelligent enough to avoid friendly fire. He unleashes a silver flame flying slash to wipe them out, but one of the angels manages to dodge the blast. Jinya roars, refusing to let a single one escape. He unleashes a second, even more powerful slash. The consecutive attacks were a massive gamble, but they paid off. Now he's completely drained, with barely enough strength left to stand. He's just one step away, but his body is screaming in protest. He realizes his silver flame is like a low-level character using a high-level spell. He needs the energy from his kills to recover, but the process is agonizingly slow. And just his luck, another Archangel decides to join the party. It seems to have been drawn by the sounds of his desperate battle. With no energy left to dodge, he has to bet everything on surviving the next hit. His body enhancement is flickering, his energy reserves completely gone. He focuses what little power he has left on protecting his vital points. The Archangel unleashes a devastating wave of pure energy, and Jinya is caught directly in the blast with no way to escape. But the blast is intercepted by a flash of lightning, and he sees Itto, crackling with a strange new power. He screams out, asking if Jinya is all right. Jinya can only stare, stunned that his classmate came to his rescue. His shock gives way to a weary, knowing smirk. He realizes Itto is just a show-off who can't abandon people in need. Guess some heroes just can't help themselves. But thanks to that heroic impulse, Jinya has the opening he needs. Itto unleashes a powerful blast, slamming into the Archangel.